Hello, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff from Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales for Turnkey Corrections here in River Falls, Wisconsin. And you are listening to Jail Talk. Now, you may notice someone's missing today. You know, my partner in crime, my sidekick, my co-host, Lauren Matthews, had a prior commitment and could not be on the air here with us today. So I'm going to do my best to try to fill her shoes. But try to carry the show without her. But it also means that I have no parental supervision. It means I have a microphone, a fellow sheriff, and Lauren, we are going to have some fun. It's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
It's going to be
and
trouble.
For those of you who are expecting to see Lauren, don't be disappointed to see me. Don't tune out. It's going to be a good show, so keep on.
So you're probably going to scold us when you come back, but you know what? We're going to earn it. That's for sure. That's for sure. So, by the way, if you enjoyed Jail Talk, please give us a like and a follow right here below. Well, Sheriff, it is really exciting to have you here today. We have with us a man very well known in the sheriff's world. He has made his mark dealing with many different issues across the country. He is very, very vocal in his beliefs and is fanatical about protecting the office of the sheriff. Sheriff Mark Lamb, welcome to Jail Talk.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thanks for having me today. And I'm going to try not to take the fact that Lauren's not here for me personally, but, you know, maybe I can earn a return trip and I'll get a chance to do the show with her later.
Knowing and seeing the things you're doing across the country for the office of sheriff, I'm pretty sure we can make that happen. I know she was severely disappointed. You know, when you get a show going like this and you start getting into that, you know, that camaraderie of you and your co-host, it's a little bit different to do that. But I'm willing to bet with our two type A personalities, we'll do okay without her. And I got a feeling when she comes back, she's going to say, "Did you really say that?" I'm going to say, "Yeah, probably did."
Well, I thank you for having me on the show. Honestly, I've watched your episodes, and I think what you guys are doing is great, and it's an honor to be on it. So.
Well, it's absolutely an honor for us to have you here, and you got a chance to meet Todd, our owner, just a little bit ago, and to see how excited he is about having you here and what we're doing with Jail Talk. As I say it every episode, but I want people to realize this is his way of giving back to the office of sheriff, to the jails that are out there, the people that support us as a company. And we're never going to sell any technology while we're on the show here. That's not what this show is about. It's about you. It's about you, your brothers and sisters, all of us that serve in the law enforcement community or have been in the law enforcement community. And that's what this show is about, is bringing quality information, quality talk, quality jail talk, quality sheriff talk out there. But we also have an impact. Law enforcement leadership is leadership. Yeah. And the impact of the sheriff across this country is huge. So we welcome anybody from the law enforcement community that wants to learn and listen. You look at the type of people that we've been bringing in, people like yourselves, you know, Sheriff Mahoney, some of our speakers that we've been having, powerful, you know, voices in the law enforcement community. So it is a privilege to have you here today. And when you know, we sat down and started talking about what we were going to write in the scripts and what we were going to do, it was almost more like, okay, we got to remember we only got a certain amount of time.
We'll see if we can squeeze it in.
We can just go forever. And you know, the impact you've had and the things that you've done, and you've rattled a few cages when I say that you speak your mind, and that's the beauty of the office of sheriff. We work for the people of our communities, not for mayors, not for commissions, not for councils, the people of our communities. And we get to have that voice, and we get to have their voice. And it's such a huge thing. So to have you here and have you get a chance to talk with us is wonderful. And right about now would be the time Lauren would be looking at me like, "Hey, it's time for me to read his bio." So you know, shut up, Paul, and let me get to that. So I'm gonna have to do that for her. But,
well, the good thing is it's short. So
well, you know what? You condensed it down, so we could get it in. And I'm just gonna say, Sheriff Mark Lamb was elected as the 24th sheriff of Pinal County on January 1st, 2017. And that was your first time, and you just recently got elected to your second term.
I did.
So
thank you to the people of Pinal County.
Absolutely. Sheriff Lamb oversees a county the size of Connecticut and manages more than 650 employees within the department. As a constitutional conservative, Sheriff Lamb is a strong supporter of our Second Amendment rights and the enforcement of all of our laws, including those that pertain to fighting illegal immigration, and he is determined to protect the rights and freedoms of the people whom he serves. And anybody that knows you Sheriff, knows that you stand by what you say. In fact, we were just watching a video of something that you had addressed earlier about the illegal immigration and the fact that you guys live all that and breathe all that every day. And it's not for you guys, it's not a topic that just is though flash news tonight. Oh, hey, let's talk about the border or let's have this disagreements about the wall. You guys live that every single day of your life. And so, we're excited to have you here. We, as a platform we have a number of things we're going to talk about today. And at the same time too, let you talk kind of about whatever you want and whatever's on your mind. So our topic today is communication and transparency. And we're going to discuss how sheriffs can better bridge the gap between their office and their communities. And that's such a huge thing. Nothing really going on in the world right now with conflict, is there?
Right.
And there's just a lot of ways we could do that. And you have found a lot of really unique ways to do that. And that's why we were so excited. If we're going to look at, there's so many sheriffs doing so many good things, and you want to be able to capture. And our goal with the show is we want to take some great ideas from people who say, that sheriff right there, I know him, I've seen him, I know it. Well, how is he doing that, and how is he getting it done? And today we're going to share a lot of that with you. Some of the things Sheriff Lamb has done to put his office in the forefront, to get out in front and protect his people, and a lot of his ideas on communication and transparency. And I think it's going to be very interesting for our listeners to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, and then it's an important topic, and you were talking about, ruffling feathers. I think that as sheriffs, it's important that we stand our ground, but also one of the things that I bring to the office that I think is important, and I talk to youth groups all the time, and one of the first things I tell them is be authentic, be you. The world is hungry for authentic people, and we have such a great platform as sheriffs to be able to just really be authentic and stick to what we took an oath to, which is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and our communities. And I take that serious, and so I'm always looking at ways that I can do that, creative ways that I can bridge that gap between our office and the community, and at the same time, get a brand for us, really build on that brand of what we are as an agency and give something that we can really take pride in.
Absolutely. And I think, you hit it earlier when you talked about, the relationships right now, and people are hungry for authenticity because they're tired of being lied to. And I think the public, the average general citizen in this country, is tired of agendas. They're tired of, can I believe anything being told to me? And they're hungry for someone to just come tell them like it is and tell them the truth. And you nailed it, man. The office of sheriff and the platform of sheriff is because you're the chief protector of that county. People have already said, we trust you to be the guy or the gal that when we go to bed, I used to tell my people that I want people of Cass County, North Dakota, when they lay their head down at 3:00 in the morning on their pillow, that know that Paul Laney and his team are out there on the job, and we can sleep well at our night knowing he's going to take care of us, he's going to protect us, and he's going to be honest with us, and he's going to care about us, and he's going to be transparent with us. And the country's hungry for that because of what's happening across this country.
And it's uncomfortable sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's uncomfortable to be that person, to be authentic, to be transparent. Those communication things that you've got to do, the different ideas you come up with are going to be uncomfortable. It's going to make a lot of your career law enforcement guys in your agencies uncomfortable. And it's important, though, that you understand what your end goal and your vision is, and you have to just trust in that. And when you put your plans together, your different programs, it's got to be towards to get you to that goal. And then when it's a little rocky at first, you got to trust that this is what it's supposed to be, and it's going to get us there, I promise you.
You and I have talked a lot about this, and we got to spend the last, day and a half together here just kind of chatting about different things and sharing our experience as a sheriff. We've both seen a lot of things in our time in uniform. And we talk about transparency, all that. But, I think one of the most important things is, and one of the things I hope to get across to our listeners is our sheriffs and jail administrators walk away from this today is going, why is transparency so important? Why do we keep beating on this? Those that have had that experience, why do they keep saying, be transparent, be open? And we know that answer, but share with our listeners, share to that sheriff or that jail administrator out there or that law enforcement leader that says, I understand you want me to be, but tell me why. Why is transparency so important in our communities?
Well, I think we've seen it now in our country. There's been a breakdown of trust. And I don't know that it's necessarily our fault in law enforcement. We probably haven't helped ourselves in some places, but it's the media has definitely turned on us, and we've had politicians that have turned on us. I've been very vocal about how disappointed I am in elected officials across this country who have failed to stand up for the men and women that put this badge on every day. It's shameful. It is. But you know what? We can't rely on those folks. We have to be able to do the job ourselves. And like you said initially, I don't work for any of them. I work for the people of my county.
Absolutely.
So my job is to ensure that I have gained the trust of the people of Pinal County. And if I can do that, it's going to make my job a lot easier. And so what I do is I constantly work hard at ways that I can show my people, A, that I'm giving a maximum return on investment for their dollar, because I come from the business background. And I think that's one of the things that's benefited me the most is because I think different than the average career law enforcement guy, because I've done marketing. I've had to look at a bottom line. You've had to make sure that every dollar you spend brings value to your company, and in this particular case, an agency. Government would do themselves a favor if they stopped looking at it like government and treat it like a business. You run a business, folks. Any chief out there, sheriffs, you run a business. And it involves customer service. It involves budgeting. It involves putting programs together on a shoestring budget. Things that
sometimes trimming the fat, holding accountable,
putting the right people in the right places so that you can give your taxpayer maximum return on investment for their tax dollars. And I think if more law enforcement guys would take that approach, it would be better. And we definitely need it in this day and age, with so many people trying to come at law enforcement and blame us for things. They're trying to cast the blame on us for dysfunctional governments in cities that have been dysfunctional for decades.
Right.
And now that they're failing, instead of taking responsibility as elected officials, they want to throw that on the police.
Let's blame the cops for everything we created. For years, and that's one of the things that I noticed over the years. There's so many things like, well, let the cops handle it. Mental health issues, let the cops handle it. Addiction issues, let's just put them in jail. Well, you're never going to jail your way out of addiction. You're never going to jail your way out of mental health. But then all of a sudden, all these different things that they've expected us to deal with for years, and we've done it very well. Now we're at fault for everything that's happening. And that's got to be really hard. I know it was when I was in the business, and now as a city sheriff, that's really got to be upsetting to see people bailing from their own responsibilities and putting them back on us.
It is frustrating, but it's also kind of our fault. We need to accept responsibility, because what we've done is we've failed to properly communicate. If we do a better job of communicating, when those elected officials try to come and tell you that it's your police fault, your community residents will say, no. We know our agency, and that's not the truth. It's your fault, not the police fault. And there are a lot of agencies across this country that are not struggling right now, that are not having problems with their relationships with their community, because they've done a really good job at that. Granted, it makes it easier if you have elected officials and government officials who support you in that. But at the same time, even if you don't, we can do a job. We can communicate to our community in such a way that they become our defenders when we do come under heat.
I think one of the most important things too for a lot of us is that one of the things that we never forget is who we work for and who we're responsible to. And I had a thing, and I do my leadership courses and talk about different things. I always talk about every morning I used to do this, and every morning from January 1st, 2007 to the last day I had in office 3 terms later, December 31st of 2018, I said to myself every day as I backed out of my driveway, Paul, here's another day to go show the people of Cass County they picked the right man. And that was my motivator every day. It reminded me every single day who I worked for, who I had to be transparent to, and who I had to communicate to, and who I had to be transparent to. And I was always one of those that said, here's my doors, come in, ask us anything. We set up programs all the time so we could communicate to our public. I wanted them to know us. I didn't want to be this super secret squirrel organization that nobody knew what was going on, because then they start to doubt you. And you nailed it on the head, Sheriff, when you said, if they know you and they believe in you and they know you're transparent, they back you up.
Yeah,
and
they defend you on social media.
Absolutely.
They do all these things. And when you talk about different programs, it's not something that you guys have to sit and come up with your own different programs. Look, I have a veterans program in my jail, which has been extremely successful. My community loves it, and I've really worked hard to tout it in our community. And I took that program from Peter Katusian, Sheriff Katusian, out of Middlesex County, Massachusetts. We've also taken a couple other program ideas from him, and vice versa. And then there's been other sheriffs where I've gone to their agencies. I take the time to visit different sheriff's offices across the country. Wayne Ivey out in Brevard County, Florida. He does some crazy good stuff, and it's pushes the envelope, but his community really gravitates to it. So, You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of sheriffs out there doing really good programs. All you need to do is just be open. And if you find a program that you think works for your size of your county and you think it's going to have a positive impact on it, then do it. I have a sheriff's redirection program where I take youth, and instead of actually putting them in the system, they don't get arrested. It doesn't even go to the county attorney. It comes directly to me, and I personally run this sheriff's redirection program. I put these kids through 4 classes. I do goal setting and planning, digital media, social media, sexting, the dangers of it, drugs and alcohol, and then we do a career night. And then we do 8 hours of community service. I make them do horse therapy for that. They shovel some crap, and then they get to deal with some horses. This is a program that I would love to see other agencies adopt, because now these kids, you're catching them on the front end before they become your career criminals. And these are types of programs that you don't have to go out and figure it out how to do it if you don't have the budget. I'll give you all that stuff. And I know a million other sheriffs, not a million because there's only 3,100 of us. I know hundreds of sheriffs that are absolutely open to giving you whatever secret sauce they have for their program.
Absolutely.
So that you can be successful in your community, even if you don't have the budget to put those programs together.
You know, I always talk about in some of my presentations, you know, when you copy somebody else's work in school, in college, it's plagiarism. When you copy another sheriff's or another leader's work in the real world, it's called best practices.
Yeah.
And, you know, and why not best practice it to, you know, as we go across this country, and we have to learn from each other because we know the quality of our people. You're right. We do got to look inside ourselves, and we got to take the corrective actions that we need to take to make sure that law enforcement always has that integrity and that people look at us with that integrity. And there's so many ways out there to do it. That's why like I said, we were so excited to have you come in today, because you've done that. You've embraced that. And that kind of leads me to my next question. You know, being in the position I've been in, having been a national board member for many years and traveled around and been very involved at some of the national levels, obviously I've met a lot of sheriffs and I've met a lot of personalities. And, you know, you definitely have a very unique way of looking at the office of sheriff. You know, when you walk into the room, everybody knows Sheriff Lamb just walked in the room. When you take a stance on an issue, you don't half-ball it, man. You take the stance, and everybody knows where you stand on something. So,
but I do it with a smile on my face.
And you do it with a smile on your face. What'd you say? So you told Lauren on the call.
Smile is your business card.
Your smile is your business card, and there's a lot of truth to that. So tell our listeners, who is Sheriff Mark Lamb?
Well, Sheriff Lamb's a patriot. Sheriff Lamb loves America. I love freedom. I love my community. I love I feel blessed to be able to serve this community. You know, we don't do it for the money. We do it because we love our communities. We love our country. And that's how most of you guys listening out there today, chiefs, sheriffs, you're doing it because you just love your community. I'm that way. And because I do that, and I also love law enforcement. And I see an opportunity as sheriffs. We have such a strong voice because of the constitutionality of our position. We don't work for anybody. If I don't agree with the governor, I can say so. If I don't agree with the president, I can say so. And there's nothing they can do about it because I work at the pleasure of the people. And so Mark Lamb is a guy who loves America and wants to serve and be a good patriot. And I hope in the end, when I did a podcast with Oliver North.
Right.
Anybody, most of us in the sheriff's world know who Oliver North is. And one of the questions he asks is this: how do you want my grandkids to view you, 50 years from now? And I said, I want to be known as a patriot, somebody who loved freedom and who fought valiantly to preserve it and who stood by his oath of office to protect and defend that Constitution. And in doing that, I believe in communication. I come from the business background. I believe in branding your agency. And it's a branding to your community, but also internally. You need to brand it to your own guys. They need to be down for the ride for the brand.
Absolutely.
It's part of the reason I dress like, people say, well, you look just like a sheriff. That's part of the branding. I mean, it's me too, so it makes it really easy, but it's also part of the branding. You walk into a place, people recognize you. You're different. And people say, well, you don't wear a uniform like the other guys. And I'm like, it's nothing against the uniform, and I do put it on. It's just this is what I've done, and
that's
this
your
is
daily
how people recognize
wear.
me.
That's what you wear,
and
when you go and do your business.
And we take opportunities. If an opportunity arises for us to better the perception of our agency, good or bad, whether it's just raw. Like sometimes you when you open yourself up and become transparent, you open yourself up with a rawness that puts you at risk. But that's where the true gems in life are. by taking risks, by challenging your department, by challenging your staff, by challenging your community. We do things all the time that challenges our community to be more interactive. But in the end, those are things that are helping bridge the gap between communities and law enforcement. Instead of putting us as the cops and us, we are all one together. And that's truly the goal of what we do.
Well, the worst thing we can have in any community is an us versus them mentality. And I think years ago, there used to be that kind of a mentality, the big knuckle dragging cop coming down the street. And, and there was a perception of that maybe back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that type of thing. And it was different types of policing, and you learn and you evolve and you grow. And that has to happen all the time. And the worst thing that could ever happen in a community is it's us versus them and not trust their cops. And that's incumbent upon us. And I think you hit it on the head when you said, sometimes when you open yourself up, it's raw. Yeah. And sometimes you might learn things you don't want to learn. But I think the solid leader, the strong leader says, okay, I didn't like what I heard. Now I'm going to fix that. And that is how the bonds start changing with the community, because they look at it and say, well, that wasn't perfect what happened there. We didn't like how that our office handled that or how our sheriff, but they fixed it. We gave them feedback and they talked to us and they fixed it. And because pride and ego are the worst thing anybody can ever have. It's good to be confident. It's good to be confident, but pride and ego needs to be in a back pocket where it belongs. Because sometimes, it hurts to hear the truth, but you fix that truth, you've already fixed a bigger bond with your community. And that's how that culture develops, and that's how that strength develops. Sometimes it hurts. Growth hurts, but we got to do it. And in this day and age right now, you're right. I mean, we know how solid law enforcement is in this country. We're some of the best trained people to deal with any of the crisis that comes our way. But there's a perception issue of us right now. And in some cases, there's maybe a reality issue that's happening. And I think as law enforcement leaders, we have to look inside ourselves, find what's raw, find what's wrong, and fix it so we can shut down this train that's going right now, because this is not going to benefit anybody in this country.
And I'll be honest, if you're uncomfortable with a thought you have or a place you need to go with your agencies, then that's probably the direction you need to go.
Absolutely.
Because you need to push yourself past that comfort zone. Look, I came in and I work with some phenomenal guys who are great leaders. I've had to challenge them, and they'll talk about how the sheriff continues to challenge us and puts them in there in a very outside the box, very uncomfortable spot because of career law enforcement guys. It's just not how we've done it. We've always been so closed book, and it's we keep things tight. We don't tell the community about what we do, about the arrests we make. And that's changing. And that's how the community wants to see that. They live in a day and age where they get so much information. Why not be the person who gives them their information? And that's how I looked at it. Why don't we become the source of info? They don't have to listen to what the news says. You know what? We're going to get the truth right from the sheriff's page. That's what we want.
And that leads us right actually into the next question I wanted to ask you about, because you have, our PIO, getting that truth out, that relationship, you see the smile's coming already, that relationship with our community is everything. And it's how we live and die as sheriffs. It's because if we don't have the confidence, we're gone. Right. And if we have that confidence, then they keep us because they believe in us. And that PIO, that person you put out there every single day, because we're not on the TV every single day. We're not. I mean, we have offices to run at times, and you see us quite a bit, and we're involved in the things. But sometimes the day-to-day stuff that happens, that's your people out there doing that. And a lot of and every agency has to look at themselves and find what's right for them. But you have a very, very different idea on the PIO position, who it should be, and where their background is. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm going to probably make some people uncomfortable, and I'm probably going to, make some people angry. But I think that a big mistake that a lot of agencies make is they want to promote an actual police officer, somebody within their agency, a sworn guy, to come in and be the PIO. And for those of you who don't know what a PIO is, it's a public information officer. So most agencies will have somebody that will handle press conferences, that type of thing. I think first and foremost, if you're the leader, you should be doing the major press releases. But I think that the PIO should not be one of your own guys. It is a lot easier to take somebody from the media and teach them what you can and can't say on the law enforcement side than it is to teach a cop to learn the media side of it. The intricacies of what you should say, and we speak and report. We think like at approximately this time on this day we did this, and that's not what the community responds to. You've got to change that message. And that's why I believe we've done it since day one. I brought in a media person and I brought in a media videographer. So I create stories. I have basically turned our agency into a news source. We want to set the narrative. And I think that you can best do that by bringing somebody from the outside into your agency with fresh ideas. They're not a career law enforcement person. They're not worried about saying the wrong, it's my job and my staff's job to corral that message, but they do a much better job of presenting the message. So for those of you out there who can afford it, if your agency is big enough, I challenge you, get somebody that's qualified to do it. And I'm not knocking any of the law enforcement out there that do great jobs. Think about how much better you could do if you had somebody that really was educated, trained, had a background in it. And they just bring such a different set of ideas to the job that really gives you a freshness to your agency.
Excellent. We talk a lot about that transparency and that messaging to the communities. What role do our staff, do our deputies, do our support staff, what role do they have in promoting that message?
Oh, that's a great question, because I touched on it a little bit. The message really is those guys. I've always said your agency are your officers or deputies and your sergeants. Everybody else above that is a support staff. And if you're not supporting your guys, then you got to redial in your leadership skills, because we are a support staff for the people actually out there doing it. So since they're the ones on the road, they're the ones on the street doing it, what you have to do is you have to first market yourself to your employees. Your employees need to know that you have their best interest in mind, that you have branded the agency to them to where they have pride in that patch. They're down to ride for the brand. And that's what you need to instill, because when you instill it in them, they will in turn go out to the community, and the way they treat the community and respond with the community is going to be 10 times better than what it was if they didn't believe in the brand. I see agencies all the time where guys are miserable because of the leadership and because their brand has not been set by their leadership. When you set that brand, those guys will go out and carry that brand out into the community, and your community will respond accordingly. And it usually is a very good relationship. So it is just as important to brand
Absolutely.
inside the agency as it is outside, and trying to find that balance of that.
And you think about it, do you want one ambassador? In your case, do you want 650 ambassadors? Right. If you have 650 ambassadors out there riding for the brand, spreading that message, sending the message of what's positive about Pinal County or any of your agencies out there, you're going to be better off in your communities, because they're connecting with everybody in the community.
And if you're a chief or you're a sheriff, your job depends, whether you get reelected or whether your city council retains you, depends on your guys being able to go out there. Because people ask them, if you don't think they don't get asked, you're kidding yourself. How do you like your sheriff, or how's your chief? Or they can tell whether an employee likes his job or doesn't. And granted, we're not going to appease every employee. We get that. There's some that are just negative Nancy's. They're just always going to be negative. But the majority of your guys, you can really get them on your team. And that benefits you. Any chief out there, any sheriff out there, it's going to benefit you to get reelected or to maintain your job. But in the end, it's just the right thing to do. Right. And that's what we're here to do, is the right thing.
So, Lauren's not here today, and she's our social media and content expert. So I'm about to score some serious co-host points here when I ask you this. When we talk about messaging, what platforms do you use? You have 5,400 square miles, 5,400, and 500,000 people in your community. What platforms do you use? That was for you, Lauren.
Yeah. Thanks, Lauren, for the question. There is no one platform. And if you think there's only one, if you're only using one platform, you're doing it wrong. We use Instagram. We post pictures. That's all really people like, and so we'll get some play there. Facebook is really good. Majority of your voters or your people in your community are going to be on Facebook, especially certain age group. So you send a specific message there. Videos and stuff do really well on Facebook, and then you've got Twitter. So Twitter is quick little messages. You might send out something like, hey, traffic accident in this place. We've done the phone apps. We've done live PD. We've done TV stuff. We will advertise in some of the local magazines. You have to be in all of them. Or, a good one is Nextdoor. Right. So if you have a huge community, there are certain neighborhoods where if you're having an increase in car break-ins, you can actually reach out via Nextdoor directly to that neighborhood, and you can get that message out there more directed. So you've got to be on all of those platforms. If you're not, that's why it's so important to have somebody who comes from a media background, because they can help you achieve all this. Because it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job, and somebody's got to be on it all the time. But yeah, you should be on all sorts of platforms and learn those platforms and know what is the best way to get this message out to this, for this particular message to this group. And you've got to be able to know where you can target that.
Well, the days of they don't really need to know what we're doing are long gone.
That's right.
They need to know what we're doing. And the new generations, I joke with Lauren all the time about, her generation and the things that they're doing. That's how they communicate, and we need to get with the program, because these are the citizens, I don't care, from 0 to 40 now, social media and the electronic generation is how they communicate to each other. And if we don't come, it's not on people, well, they need to get on board with us. No, we need to get on board with them. And those are the people now that are the up-and-coming leaders within our communities. Those are a lot of the backbones of our communities, and we need to get on board with them. If you want to have that culture change, if you want to have that transparency, we need to get on board with that, and this is great advice.
Yeah, because people are on their phones. People are on, they're connected nonstop, and they are out there looking at content. And why not be one of those people that's providing content? And you've just got to really understand your neighborhoods, your area, and understand your demographic, because age matters too.
Absolutely.
Like, I might tell you that Facebook might work in your community because of the age group, the demographic, but it may not work in somebody else's community. So you just really have to be open to using all platforms, find out what works best for you, and then really do a good job on those platforms.
So let me ask you this. Can you have too much content? Or is there such a thing as bad content?
Yes and yes. As a matter of fact, I follow a lot of agencies that do a good job. They have good content, but they put out too much. We typically do not put out more than one post a day. We are very targeted on that. We sit and we plan out. We have a whiteboard, and I sit there with my PIOs, and we whiteboard what is going to be our message here. What day are we going to post this? What time does it go out? You typically want to post your posts around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That seems to be when they do the most, 2 to 4 probably in there. We have a whiteboard where we list all these different ideas, and we brainstorm 2 or 3 times a week as to what we can do. We'll do, hey, let's go out and highlight all our female deputies, and we'll send my videographer out to drive around with the female deputies, and we'll put a video together for that. You've just got to constantly be thinking. So yes, you can post too much, and make it good content. I wanted to talk, about the communication. I'm going to talk about content, and I want to talk about how that relates to your communication with your community and how that benefits you. I always explain it like this. You have a bank account, and everything you put out is all the good stuff, like, hey, we arrested a child molester, or we did this shop with the sheriff for needy families. We brought in a bunch of water for people during the summer because it's hot in Arizona.
Right.
You do all these things and you post about them. And then that puts money in your bank, all the little deposits into your bank, some better than others. Because when the withdrawals come, and they're always bad, maybe you got caught by a First Amendment guy, where your deputy was being rude to somebody, or maybe you heaven forbid you have a shooting at your agency. That's a heavy withdrawal. If you don't have enough money in your account, if you have not put enough good content in your account, your community is going to turn on you. But if you've put enough in there, you've got plenty to cover that, and it doesn't ruin that relationship. Yeah, do you have work to do? Yep. But we had enough in there to cover it. And you don't want to just have just enough to cover it. We talked about this earlier. Yep. You don't want to have $5 extra at the end. You want hundreds of thousands of bucks in there, to where you can constantly do it. So make sure that your content is good. Get somebody that's a professional. People are attracted to good how things look aesthetically. If your videos are good, the right amount of music, the right volume, all of those things matter. The right length on your video. Instagram's only a minute. We typically don't do videos more than 30 seconds to a minute. If we do, we make sure the content is really good and the quality is really good. I did a 7-minute video about driving in the left lane. No matter where I go, people will talk to me about that.
Yeah.
That thing has 7 million views. And all it was me talking about don't drive in the left lane. You got to be in the right lane except to pass. So, yes, make sure that you have not too much content. I recommend only posting once a day, and then making sure that it's good quality content, that it's going to get you somewhere. Don't just post to post. It doesn't benefit you.
Actually, sometimes it'll hurt you.
Yeah, because it becomes white noise, and then people stop tuning you. They start to tune you out because your content's boring. So you want to make them come to the page. They know that they're not going to get more than one a day, but it leaves them wanting more, and it's uplifting, it's good, and it covers you when it's bad. I'll tell you this one story. I had Facebook actually flagged one of my employees and actually went to a local agency and said, hey, this guy's had an inappropriate relationship with a young man. So that agency comes to us and says, we're investigating one of your employees and we're going to arrest him. And my PIO comes to me and says, what are we going to do? How do we do this? And I said, you know what? Go get your camera. I'm going to go on camera right now and tell the people that my employee's being arrested, that we're working with this other agency, and I'm going to be completely transparent about it.
You owned it.
Every comment we had on there, not one of them bashed us. Every one of them was like, thank you, Sheriff, for being transparent. This is hard. We feel for you. It completely flipped the script. As opposed to the media getting a hold of it and setting the narrative. We set the narrative. We showed trust in our community. They felt like they could trust us even in the bad times. And what should have been a very negative experience turned out to be something that actually gained us more confidence in the community. So it is so important that you dial in your content and keep it right.
You know, bad things happen, and people, where there's humans, there's human behavior, and humans are going to make mistakes. And I think, like anything, owning up to it. It's like, owning up to your parents when you were a young kid and you stepped in it. It's going to hurt, and I'm not going to like what happens. You got to own up to it. Well, it's kind of like that for us now, just on a much grander adult scale, is that when things happen, and I had the same issues. If we had somebody step in it, we didn't hide it. We laid it out. Did it hurt? Was it enjoyable to go out to the public and say one of our people made a bad decision? No. But nobody could ever come back and say we tried to cover for it, that there was this thin blue line that, we cover for those that don't make it, where actually the thin blue line's about sacrifice, and our agency's about you got to meet our standards to even be one of us, much less cover for you if you're going to not be it. And what you did right there, shut all that down. Because right away you owned it, and it, I'm sure, was not a fun day to have to do that. And the employee made the decision they made, and it was certainly dealt with. And people looked at you and they said, "Man, he walks the walk he talks."
And we didn't throw the employee under the bus, because when it happens to one of your employees, it's you. It's all of you.
It's all of you.
And we just said, "Look, we're just going to work with this agency, and our heart goes out to the victims, and we're just going to do what we can." We didn't throw the employee and say, "Hey, this guy." Whatever. We just said, look, he's on admin leave. We're going to work with the other agency. We're doing an internal investigation. We'll keep you posted.
And then the investigations will speak for themselves. And where else is there to go? There's the truth.
Yeah.
There's the truth. Well, you do really put your money where your mouth is, and you have put you and your people on a national stage. You recently invited 2 media venues, Live PD, and 60 Days In, into your house, into your people, and let them through your doors. Tell us about that and why, because I tell you what, that's putting it out there.
It is, and it was this was one of those things that really it put my guys on edge. They came to me once. I had won my race. They had come to me right after I took office, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm like a baby deer on ice. I'm still trying to figure out how to walk here in this thing." 6 months later, after we got through our first budget, we reached back out to Live PD, and right about the same time, 60 Days In was coming around. And they said, "Hey, we want to do this show with you." And we said, "Let's do it." I looked at it like this was an opportunity to showcase the good work that the men and women that put on the badge do every day. I wasn't worried about it. People say, "Well, Sheriff, you just did it for you to get fame." No, I didn't, because this put me at risk. It could have backfired on me, and I would have lost the election and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So no, it wasn't about me. This was about my people, and they going out and doing the work. Did they showcase? They rode around with me for a long time too, because I try to lead by example. I'm willing to do the job that I'm asking my deputies to do as well. So we took on the opportunity. I thought it was really good. Our community loved it. It gave us national exposure. And I mean, national exposure is valuable. When you go in for grants or when you go in for money that the federal government has for you, it gives you a seat at the table now. It just exposes you. It gives you some good exposure. We ran the risk of the negative things, and we had bad things happen on it, and we took phone calls with upset people across the country. But we were transparent about it. And then 60 days in, I thought it was only right to showcase our jail guys, because so many people don't understand that sheriffs in most of the counties in this country not only run the road, but we run a jail too. And some only run a jail. And so it was good to give them an inside look at our jail. That one took guts too. We just had to just open up. And that's actually trending on Netflix right now. So I'm getting some nasty grams too about how we did this wrong and how somebody else could do it so much better. But it does. It opens it up. But how else do you get an inside look at your jail at zero cost to the taxpayer? And so these have been things that when I go around in the community, nobody's angry about those things. As a matter of fact, I get every day, Sheriff, when's Live PD coming back? Let's do 60 days in again. They took pride in the fact that their community was on those shows and that we did a good job. And so if you're a hot mess, I don't know if I recommend it, but if you have great people out there working, which most agencies do, I think that when those opportunities come, don't be afraid to take them, because that's where the good stuff is. And that's truly where you're going to gain some major ground with your community. So, yeah, we've taken those chances, and we've lucked out, and they've been good for us.
Excellent. Well, on the other scale of that, let me ask you this. So, having had to deal with this for 3 terms myself, in my 3 terms as sheriff, and it seems to be even worse right now. How have you dealt with media venues that come at you with already a preconceived notion, or they come already at you with their own agenda, versus telling both sides of the story? Because there seems to be a strong move in the media. You know, people talk about a lot of things happening in law enforcement. There's a lot of things happening in the media right now where they need to take a look inside themselves, because so many of them have become activists for a cause. They're not journalists anymore. And that's their cross to bear. They need to look inside themselves and fix this. But we deal with the repercussions of that, where you have a reporter or a journalist come in who already has a preconceived notion. They write a story about already against you. And don't look at both sides of the story. What's your advice to our listeners on how to deal with that?
How to deal with the fake media? You know, there are good journalists out there still in our local communities, but I think on a whole, the media has really caused a lot of issues in this country. I think on a national level, where we're at is large in part because of the misinformation that the media puts out there. We recognized that when I first came in, so I told my people, we're going to set the narrative. So what we do is, before the media can get onto it, we're not afraid to put out the press release. We're not afraid to tell you about the case or whatever have you, because then the media is then locked into what you already put out. Your community knows the true facts because you put it out. So whatever the media runs with now, they have to stay pretty true to what happened. Every now and then they zing you, you know. On a personal level, if you're the guy, you're going to get zinged. They zing me when they can. Especially if you're a conservative. Most of the media is fairly liberal leaning, and they will take shots at you when they can. And I've had them take shots at me, and there's not much you can do about circumventing those. But if you have a large enough platform, which you have to realize most media, they don't get a lot of viewers anymore. The viewership is declining rapidly in those industries. And so we have become actually, in many cases, a much stronger media source than our local newspaper or some of the local stations. So we focus on setting the narrative. And I think that if you're listening, don't be afraid to set the narrative on what you got coming out and make them work with what truth you've already put out. That's what I've found to be a success, or at least making it easier to deal with the media.
Well, excellent advice. Excellent advice. So let's talk about you for a second here. You had a big day recently. You're now published, my friend.
I did. I was. I don't know if I'm I'm dumb enough, or I don't know. I just checked things off in life, and I wrote a book. My wife and I both wrote books at the same time. My wife's book came out a month ago called The Sheriff's Wife: Holding It All Together Behind the Scenes in Politics, where she talks about what it's like to be married to a politician and somebody, at least in my community, that's recognizable, and how that affects our family and all that. My book is American Sheriff: Traditional Values in a Modern World, where I talk a lot about some personal experiences and what's kind of defined me as a person in my life. and gotten me to this point and developed my love of country and freedom. And it also talks about what I think are some key life things, you know. One of the chapters I write about is it's not a fight until you meet resistance. And I talk a lot about that. Or sometimes you eat the bear and sometimes the bear eats you. I talk about that. And hopefully, as you read this book, you'll learn a little bit more about me, but you'll also hopefully take a little bit of motivation from it and things that you can apply in your own life and maybe help you be more successful in your career as a law enforcement or just business career. That comes out, it just came out. It's going to be, I hope, a success. And then you can get that on AmericanSheriff.com. And I will have a coin that I'm only going to be selling on my website. You can get it on Amazon too, but the coin you can only get on AmericanSheriff.com. It's a challenge coin that I'll sell with the book.
Excellent. Well, I was just going to ask you, how can they get it? And as always, you're leading the charge and you're ahead of the game. So AmericanSheriff.com.
Yep. And then if you want to follow me, I'm American Sheriff on Instagram, Sheriff Lamb 1 on Twitter, Sheriff Lamb on Facebook. And Parler, I'm Sheriff Lamb. So if you're not on Parler, get on Parler.
I just joined Parler.
Yeah, they let you talk there. They don't censor you.
What a concept in America.
What
a concept in America. Well, I'll tell you what, on behalf of Jail Talk, we're so excited about this. And one of the first chances you had a chance to tell people about what's happening. So if you are following us, I am going to challenge you, go to YouTube, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And the very first person to like us and comment something about Sheriff Lamb here and about Jail Talk, we're going to send you a free autographed copy of his book. So get going.
I'll send one with the coin, too.
Outstanding.
I'll send one with the coin.
Outstanding. Thank you. So you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, like us, subscribe, and make a comment, and you're going to get a free autographed copy of the book and a coin from Sheriff Lamb.
And that's my donation to you guys because I love what you're doing. I think it's important that we get as many voices out there for law enforcement. So I appreciate Turnkey Corrections and Jail Talk for doing this because I think I think we all benefit from it. Hearing each other, recognizing that we're all kind of going through the same things. I know you as a sheriff, we've had so many conversations about it. It's so similar. And I think it's just great that we can actually hear each other talking about this.
That's the beauty of what we do. We talked about this a lot yesterday. Whether you have a 5-person office or a 500-person office or a 5,000-person office, we all have the same issues.
That's right.
We have the same issues, just on different levels of what we're dealing with, and we can all learn from each other, share with each other. That's the goal of Jail Talk. That's the goal of our show, and to have quality leaders and sheriffs like you here. It gives credibility to our show and what we want to do. And we had made a promise we were going to walk the walk we talked, and you just help us deliver that today. Thank you. Well, we are coming to the end of the show, and it's the point where I just say, any last words of wisdom or advice to our listeners, or anything that Sheriff Lamb has to say to the communities, to the country, and to our listeners.
First off, I just want to thank all those men and women who put the badge on every day. We appreciate you, and I pray for you, and I know so many other people do, and you have a lot more support than you think. As for the other law enforcement, and especially the law enforcement officials listening, I ask that you just remember the oath we took. The oath of office is to protect and defend the Constitution of this United States. We are in a time in this country where we need men and women that will stand up for what's right, what's true, and the Constitution is a good guide. Whenever I'm in doubt as to what direction I should go as a law enforcement official, I look at the Constitution. I just go off of that, and it tends to keep me in the right place. It gets me in trouble sometimes because people are challenging the Constitution.
Absolutely.
So I would just ask that you do that, and it will help us throughout this country in law enforcement if we treat people constitutionally and with the kindness and dignity and respect that everybody deserves. You can be tough. I say, don't mistake my meekness for weakness. You can be tough as a law enforcement official, but also be empathetic and have a good relationship with your community. You can do it and be a good cop. And for all of those of you out there who are not in law enforcement, thank you for your support. And we live in the greatest country in the world. Don't forget that. Don't listen to the media telling you that we're not, or certain groups that have agendas trying to tell us that we're not the greatest country. We are.
We are.
America is the greatest country in the world, and we will continue to be that. Have faith, have hope. God's in control, and it's going to be okay.
Well, great advice from a great leader and a great sheriff. Sheriff Lamb, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're so excited to have you. And as we knew would happen, the message was strong, the message was direct. And I know there's a lot of sheriffs out there, a lot of law enforcement leaders out there that are going to walk away from today's show going, I learned something today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, we are definitely coming towards the end of this show. If you have any questions, or maybe you even want to be on the show or have an idea for our show, email us at jailtalk@turnkeycorrections.com. Lauren monitors that every single day. jailtalk@turnkeycorrections.com. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at JailTalk Podcast. JailTalk Podcast on Twitter. And or listen on jailtalk.podbean.com. And I see, Lauren, I got all that out just nice and smooth, didn't I? So, or watch us on your favorite podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We love what we're doing with the show. We're going to continue bringing quality messages, quality leaders, and that's our goal with this is to do something for you, for our listeners, for the people out there that count on us every day. So, thank you for tuning in. I'm Paul Laney, and Lauren Matthews will be back on the next episode. And you're listening to Jail Talk. We'll see you next time.